Okay, so this isn't the type of video I'd make super often, or at least not the way I'd title a video very often. I don't like to sound super petty. I try to be somewhat relatable while not being excessively annoying at the same time, where any topics I cover on this channel are relatively important, or at least important to me, or just random art stuff, I don't know. But oh my god, it is incredible to me how fast that literal teenagers and young adults can start behaving like moronic, obsessive toddlers as soon as they come across some enjoyably organized pixels on a screen. How fast they can start blatantly disrespecting people because they want something. And this video isn't just about the site Toy House, don't get me wrong. Whenever I mention character trading in this video, I'm talking about it everywhere that it happens, which is basically any site that has something of an art platform on it. But if you've spent a few milliseconds on Toy House, then you definitely understand the picture that I'm painting. And over the time that I've been in this character trading community, I've seen so many repeated behaviors that are either, I don't know, like very common or just like not talked about that I've developed some pretty strong opinions on. You can think of this as something of a part 2 to that strange character trading culture video, which if you haven't watched yet, you definitely should because you'll absolutely like it if you like this one, but you don't need to understand this. Instead of the kind of infographic style covering weird things that exist in the community and just explaining what they mean and stuff, this time I'm towing the flame a bit, and all of these points are entirely my opinions, and things that aren't brought up super often, or at least not that I know of. And I think that I can skip the part of the intro where I explain what an opinion means. All you have to know about that is you're allowed to, disagree, and me having, a different opinion than you do is not a personal attack on you. Hope that's clear enough. Okay, let's get started with my first take. 1. A lot of people in this community misunderstand the value of time and money. Okay, so I think a part of this, like a good part of this, is because there are a lot of children on sites like Toy House. And I get it, I'm a child as well. When you haven't had much or any experience having to independently manage your own money or buy things from other people, you might just not understand how serious it is to, ghost someone on the other end of a monetary exchange. Don't get me wrong, when I was like 13 or 14, I was super inconsistent, and although it never got super serious, sometimes I'd tell someone I'd draw them for free and I would never actually do it, and things like that. Of course, if you do get scammed by someone, you shouldn't be expected to just suck it up and say nothing because they're a kid. I think kids should still be held responsible for mistakes like this so that they learn from the experience. But I don't think that we should portray tweens and young teenagers as monsters because they haven't yet understood the concept of money. That's kind of an understandable behavior. But some of you can't hide behind that excuse. Some of y'all are grown-ass adults, or gonna be adults in almost no time. Some of you are trusted to drive and operate a vehicle on the road. You cannot just hide behind, I'm a silly kid, because you wasted 6 months of another person's time or legitimately scammed someone over a character design. And if you're confused what I'm referring to here, I'm gonna throw this out there. I will legitimately estimate that half of the offers on my characters that I have gotten were not fully completed. And maybe that's because I straight up got ghosted and ignored when I reached out. Or the person kept saying, "I'll finish soon," for a year, and they never did. Or they spent money that they didn't have, and they said they would get me $50 in a week, but they never followed through and they canceled. Or they offered more art than they could draw and they canceled. But something like this happens half the time that people make an offer to me. And honestly, for me, it's not that big of a deal, but that's because my transactions are usually pretty small values, and I don't sell many characters for super high prices very often. But here's something I think a lot of people need to familiarize themselves with. Stop spending money that you don't have and making offers of time you don't have. Yes, I get it, we slip up sometimes, and clear communication is absolutely better than nothing. If something like this happens, it's so much better that you say something rather than just, ignoring the person. Don't do that. But this happens way too often for it to always be chalked up to a good excuse or an emergency. And promising someone a large sum of money and not giving them a cent is kind of ridiculous. For some artists, this is literally their jobs, as in this person has to pay bills at the end of the month. This is a real human being, so they are selling characters to raise that money that they need. And you told them that you would give them $100 by the end of the week, so they added that to their estimate and sighed a breath of relief knowing that they wouldn't have any financial worries this month. And then you canceled 2 weeks later because, oops, sorry, I couldn't get the money in time. I think a lot of people need to realize what, the term hold actually means. As in, please hold this character and I will pay for it later. A hold doesn't mean don't let the character designer sell it for a week in hopes that you might randomly come across this money. Only place a hold if you definitely know where that money is coming from. I have seen people on this wretched website auto-buy an auction with a hold for a value that they have probably never even seen in their checking account before. If you don't have a set paycheck coming next week, don't just shrug your shoulders and hope you'll get that money. Because when or if you don't get it, it's very stressful. Any designer will let you know that it is a lot harder to sell a character 2 weeks after it was posted than the first day. Right after posting it is the best time to get the highest offers, because by the time that 2 weeks or something have passed, less people are impulse interested, and either they have already spent the money that they were willing to spend at the time, or they aren't checking on the character anymore to see if they can get it under the assumption that it sold. So don't do this to people. Like, a character is a want, not a need. It is pixels on a screen. There are not many valid reasons I can think of why this kind of behavior can be justified. 2. Dreamie and wishlist culture is a little weird sometimes. Now, before anyone gets stressed out, I am not saying that you can't have a Dreamie or wishlist folder. That is not my point here. Don't go delete it, I mean, unless you want to, but you don't necessarily have to. Ash, what the hell is a Dreamie or wishlist folder? Great question! On Toy House and, I don't know, maybe other sites, but I don't know, they're basically the concept of saving characters to a folder that you would really like to own. On this site, you can rename your favorite folders, which are public on your account, and some people will title them wishlist or dreamies, and then when they come across a character that they think is cool and they want to own, they might save it to that folder. And that description, to someone unfamiliar, or familiar honestly, will probably elicit one of two responses. Okay, whatever. Or, what? Now look, I used to have a Dreamie folder because I saw like almost everyone I follow had one, and it seemed to be a very normalized concept. And I was like, heck, I see characters I want to own someday all the time. This is a great way to keep track of them. But honest opinion here, again, opinion, I grew to realize that treating other people's accounts like a Costco catalog is a ridiculous concept. And I started to notice that some of the people I follow began to request that nobody adds their characters to these Costco catalogs. And it got me thinking, okay, yeah, I can see how this might make someone uncomfortable. And then I got rid of my Dreamie folder because I wasn't even using it to try and trade for these characters anymore. So it basically had no purpose other than potentially irritating people who accidentally found out their character was in it. And I figured it'd be too much work to check everyone's individual boundaries before favoriting a character. And does this mean I think you should do the same? Not necessarily, but I still do think that if you do have one of these types of folders, then you should be ready to check to make sure that people are okay with you doing this before you just add their characters to it. And no, that doesn't mean you just need to ask every single person permission to press a star button. But if they say on their page to not add their characters to these kinds of folders, then just don't. Like, just don't. But Ash, why would anyone care? It's not that big of a deal. Look, I agree. Me personally, I do not care if people add my characters to these kind of folders. Does that mean I'm giving it to you? Probably not, but wishlist away, I don't give a shit. I don't have time to check through hundreds of people to see what folder they added my OC to, and because of that, chances are I'm never gonna actually see it if you do. But I think it's important to understand why some people might not like it. If I was able to control whether or not people did this or didn't do this, I'd totally rather that they didn't. It's just the fact that I'm probably never going to find out that makes me not want to put like a warning or anything that I don't want people to do it. But the reason other people might still ask that you don't do this, even though they might not find out, is because the basic concept just doesn't sit well with them. And the reason this makes people uncomfortable is because some people have a lot of genuine attachment to some of their characters, and they don't want to see that character added to someone's wishlist. They don't want to see their account treated like, again, a catalog. Because it can kind of be seen as odd to act like someone else's profile containing someone else's property is a shopping website. And you want to know what my advice here is? If you really want to keep track of characters that you want to buy one day like this, just make the folder and then don't name it Dreamies or Wishlist. Just title it with a cute heart emoji, a cool comment emoji, I don't know. You'll still know what it means. That effectively solves a lot of potential problems for you. Because my confusion lies with the publicity. Why does this need to be public? For what reason does it need to be advertised that, hey guys, this is my Dreamie folder with all my Dreamies. I want this character. I'm waiting for the opportunity for this person to finally fucking sell this character design because I want nothing more than to buy it. Is that like really necessary? Is it really impossible to understand why someone might just like not fuck with that? Like, maybe it's because you want people to be able to find it if they're offering on your characters, to be like, oh hey, I own a character in this person's wishlist folder, so I'll offer that because I know that they want it. But realistically, like for real, how many times has someone actually done this in a trade with you? Just think about it. And how many characters have you put in your Dreamie folder that belong to people who don't follow you? Like people who might never offer on your characters. And some people have the most massive wishlist folders. Like, do you think that someone is going through 12 pages of characters to check if they own one so that they can offer on one character? It's just something to think about is all. Again, I'm not saying you guys should delete your wishlist folders or else you're the scum of the earth, but I think some perspective on it is necessary. I feel like we just don't talk about it enough. 3. Sometimes people are overly controlling about what happens to their character designs. Now look, I get it. We might have some boundaries about what happens to the characters we make. Even though they're not owned by us anymore, that doesn't mean we want our name associated with just about anything. And I understand that. However, it is my personal opinion that some people's terms of service are way too strict. And does that mean I think you should disobey them intentionally because you think they're unfair? No, I think you should still respect them, since by trading for their design, you're accepting to those terms. I think everyone's terms have a right to be respected, because if you don't plan on adhering to them, you shouldn't have traded in the first place. The exception being if they added something afterwards or it wasn't publicly available to you or something. But that doesn't mean that I can't critique the contents. Not being allowed to redesign a character is stupid. I paid for the character, and yes, I probably want to modify it to fit my specific taste. Maybe I really liked the design. Does that mean I don't think they would look cooler with some accessories? With a cool pattern on them, with a different eye color? I should be able to make these kinds of changes. Yes, I get it. It might not look like your original design, but a part of owning a character is making changes to it over time. I think we can agree on that. Now, because some of you guys don't seem to realize or understand the literal product description of what you're selling. You are not just selling a PNG, you are selling ownership. Character ownership, meaning you are giving your property to someone else. Just because the way they used something deviates from what you initially imagined it to be used like, that doesn't mean that they're some sort of villain. And I think restricting creativity in your terms of service says a lot about how you view designs as a concept. Oh, and you know another thing I hate that kind of fits into this category? People saying you can't make similar looking sibling designs, which is astoundingly common. If you've never heard this before, you're probably surprised, but like this is like a really common terms of service. And again, I get it. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this in another video before, but I understand. You don't want someone to pay for one design by you and then get 2 designs technically in your name out of it because they made a really similar looking design to the original design with slightly different colors or patterns and just called it a brother or a sister. But like, can we just take a step back and think about this? You pay for a character, and a way that a lot of people want to use these characters, like a part of the appeal of buying characters, is designing lore for them. But you aren't allowed to give it family members because the designer doesn't want you to get 2 designs in their name. Even though you might not even give a flying fuck about the trading scene at the moment because you're just trying to make a story for a character that you bought. And stories make more sense when your character can fit in with the plot and have a family and like reason for existing, but you're not allowed to do that because of the trading scene, which are 2 separate things. And again, I can make a concession here. I don't think you should automatically get 2 for the price of 1, because that does potentially mean you can resell 2 designs when you only paid for the original. But there are so many ways to get around those potential problems without gripping people with an iron fist and making them feel like you own their character more than they do, even though they paid you for nothing other than the ownership of that design, like the ability to decide whether they want to make siblings for it or something. Just tell people not to sell or retrade sibling designs, just say they can't trade them, you know what I mean? Or tell people not to post a new page for it and just make their concept a part of the first designs page in a tab or a sub-gallery. Like, there are solutions without restricting how someone creates conceptual lore about the design that they paid for. I think overall, some people just really do need to kind of understand what they're actually selling. Yes, when you currently own something and you sell the ownership to another person, you no longer get to control exactly what happens to it or what they end up using it for. But if there are things that you really don't want to see happen to your characters, and like a lot of those things, you probably shouldn't sell them. In my opinion, if you're getting into selling characters, you have to be willing to actually part with them. They didn't pay you so that you could still own that character. That's not fair. 4. Rather than assuming all characters are for sale unless we're told otherwise, we should initially assume the opposite. This might seem like meaningless syntax or just not that important of a distinction, but I think it's something we should start to think about. Because generally what a huge amount of people assume is that if someone does not say that a character is not for sale, then that automatically means you can shoot your shot as it is, meaning just post an offer in the comments in hopes that the owner potentially might look at it while accepting a no if the owner isn't interested. This might sound like a pretty fair conclusion to draw, and honestly, I would have agreed with this a while back. I never really saw a problem with it until I've been on the other side of this. The side where I buy a new character that I'm excited to use and I'm immediately hit with private messages and public comments asking to buy it off of me because within those 0.2 seconds I didn't update a big tag on it to say that it wasn't for sale. Of people begging for a chance to offer on a character and trying to guilt trip me into giving it to them because of the implied conclusion that they came to all by their independent selves that they want it more than I do. And look, offers don't generally bother me. I get it. The site I store my characters on is known for being super trade oriented, and it's not crazy that people will be shooting offers on characters that they like. But I think there is an important thing to recognize here. Not everyone wants to sell their characters. Not everyone is super involved with trading. Not everyone likes to have offers on their characters. Not everyone will find that inoffensive. But quiz, if they don't want to get offers, then they should just mark their characters as not for trade. How else am I supposed to know? And that's my inherent point here. A lot of people have like several characters. I have 130 characters posted to my Toy House account. Why is it my responsibility to update 130 characters to say that they're not for trade, rather than people just seeing that there's no indicator that a character is for trade and assuming that they're not? You're telling me when I buy my Dodge Challenger or my Ferrari F40, I have to leave a big ass sign covering its majestic beauty to let people know that it's not for sale, to prevent some random teenage white boy from walking across my property up to my doorstep like this is Facebook Marketplace lowballing me to buy my car? No, that's ridiculous. So why would you do that with characters? And I try to make it easy for people. While I don't mark characters individually, since that would take way too long, and I also just don't really use tags in general, I do try to mark folders. But again, why should I have to mark all my folders saying I'm not selling something? So I made it so that I have one folder for the characters that I'm selling. And I have that folder marked very clearly as for sale. And I have it clearly written on my page in multiple places that anything that isn't in that folder marked for sale isn't for sale. So tell me why people just offer anyway. It's because people are impatient and they don't want to take 5 seconds to look around past the individual character page to see if it's for trade or not. The funny thing is when you click on my account for the first time, which a lot of these people are doing since they don't actually follow me and they just track my ass down from a f***ing Dreamie folder, you get a big pop-up banner where it is concisely written to just not do that. But people click past it too fast or they don't read it, so they end up doing the exact opposite of what those few sentences say to do. And you may be wondering what the big deal of offering on a character is. It really doesn't take that much effort on my part to say no and clear the message, right? So why would someone care about this? Now, I'll offer you a perspective on this, because I asked myself the same question before I started feeling this way myself. Which is a trend with a lot of these, right? A while ago, I decided that I would detach from character trading a bit. I still rehome characters and I still buy new ones every now and again, but a while ago I used to be a lot more into it. I started to realize that I had so many characters that I rarely ever used or drew, and I was wasting a lot of money and time that I could invest somewhere else on something I actually planned to make use out of, like these cool fish flops I bought. I set the goal to only buy or trade for characters that I genuinely intended on using, not only just might use or thought looked kinda cool. Characters I had actual motivation to draw, and I've been going by that ever since, and I've reduced my character count by a lot, and I'm much more happy with how much attention that each of my individual characters get, and the feeling that I put my money in the right place when I got them. I stopped entering giveaways for characters just because I mildly liked how they looked or just because I could. I stopped offering on random characters even if the art wasn't super demanding to draw or the price was well in my budget. And I've been happier. And not everyone does this, and that's fine. But now, when people offer on my characters that I've gotten relatively recently or haven't gotten a chance to draw yet just because of time restrictions that I still had full intentions to draw when my schedule freed up a bit, I get a lot more disheartened by it than I used to. Which is why I put up a new term that I don't do pings on my characters. By the way, pings refers to the Toy House term for asking to be pinged or notified when a character that is not up for sale does go up for sale. It makes me feel like someone is waiting at my window for me to be done with my character so that they can grab it off of me. Maybe you remember what it's like to try and play with a toy when you were in like elementary school and some other like sweaty kid who wanted it was like sitting next to you and just staring at you. That's how it feels when someone offers on a character when they know it's not up for sale or they don't know if it's for sale or not. Because it makes me start to get anxious and doubt myself. It makes me start to reassess whether or not I deserve to own my own character, even though like in reality, I don't owe it to anyone to sell something if I don't want to, and I paid for it fair and square. I shouldn't all of a sudden feel like I'm pressured to give it away to someone that I might not even know. I don't personally think that I should be obligated to hear out offers if I don't want to, and I think that conversation should realistically end there. But I want the character really bad. But I've been waiting to buy it forever. But I draw it way more than you. No, you're missing the point a little bit. Your desperation to own a character design does not give you the right to overstep or assume another person's boundary. It's just weird in my opinion. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have for this video. I can already feel it getting kind of on the long side, so I'm gonna wrap it up here. If there's anything that you want to add that you didn't hear mentioned, feel free to leave it in a comment. If it's your first time here and you like what I'm doing, please consider subscribing. I'd definitely appreciate that. Sorry I haven't posted for a hot minute. I've been super busy with school and AP tests and everything, and I've had less and less free time to actually sit down and work on videos. I've also been sick for months. I feel like I'm always sick. I'm sorry. Hopefully in the summer when I have more time to myself, I can post more regularly. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.